The Trump administration is making good on the president's campaign promise to roll back climate protections. EPA Administrator Lee Zeldin announced what he called the largest deregulatory action in U.S. history earlier this week. Take a look.
EPA will be reconsidering many suffocating rules that restrict nearly every sector of our economy and cost Americans trillions of dollars. Today, the Green New scam ends as the EPA does its part to usher in the golden age of American success.
By the way, one of the things the EPA will now, quote, reconsider is what its press release calls a burdensome greenhouse gas reporting program, where thousands of companies have to submit their emissions levels. Zeldin said the agency would try to undo a total of 31 environmental regulations, from rules governing wastewater to emission standards. The Trump administration has also fired hundreds of EPA employees and revealed plans to shut down the EPA's Environmental Justice Division. That group works to lower the health and environmental impacts on predominantly low-income and minority communities. Joining us now to discuss the fallout is our national environmental correspondent, David Schechter. David, good morning. Just tell us what it takes and what it means that they're reconsidering a lot of these regulations. What's at stake here?
Essentially, the way we interface with the environment is really what's on the line here. You know, there are the EPA's job is to enforce environmental rules so that we have clean air and so that we have clean water. You just heard that clip from Zeldin, who said, in that clip, said nothing really about the environment. He only talked about burdensome regulations and helping businesses. So what they're talking about here is tipping the balance. There's always a balance, right, between the environment and how to keep it clean, and then how to, not stymie businesses in our country. What they're saying is that the balance has shifted way too far towards regulation, but what they said yesterday really didn't even talk about the environment and why we need to keep it clean and why climate change has become such an existential threat with increased floods and fires and droughts, and how the EPA has a role in trying to make sure that we control that and contain that.
What do you think is the biggest risk if companies these companies that were required to report their emissions levels now no longer have to?
I think the biggest risk is that we have a small window to deal with climate change, really. I mean, it's getting smaller and smaller, less than 10 years to sort of level out and reduce our emissions. And we had and have currently a lot of rules that deal with that. To throw those all out would undo a lot of progress that's been made to try to reach these new standards for our country and for the world. And we will lose our opportunity to really get ahead of this problem or even stay current with the problem.
David, you mentioned that the EPA administrator had not talked much about the environment in that announcement, but he did write an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal, and I'll quote from it here in part. He said the EPA's core mission remains safeguarding human health and the environment through partnership rather than prescriptive bureaucracy, through collaboration rather than regulation. So there's a lot of political talking points in this op-ed, but the general idea, the claim from the Trump administration seems to be, if companies save money by not having to report a bunch of things that are a waste of time, they can take that saved money and make the energy process cleaner. So that'll help the environment. What do you think of that claim?
I don't know I guess if that's your reading of that claim, I think that's an interesting way to look at it. Companies, corporations, many of them do the right thing and do spend a lot of time on their environmental issues and reporting and things like that. But no one, the government's job is to set a level playing field, if that's how you view the government's job, to set a level playing field with regulations so that everyone is following the same rules. Some companies do get in trouble when they get ahead of their competitors and they have rules that are maybe more stringent than what their competitors have, and then the market kind of catches up to them and they take a lot of criticism for being too far ahead of the pack. So, having stoplights and roads and, rules of the road is what keeps everybody sort of moving in the same direction. That's the idea of the EPA. That's the power of the EPA. And to say we care about the earth and we care about clean water, that's what we're going to do, is one thing, but to look at what they did and want to cut 31 important regulations is really what you should be looking at.
It's interesting. Yeah, but this is the claim from the EPA press release. Hundreds of millions of dollars saved could better be used, quote, to improve and upgrade environmental controls to have a noticeable impact and improvement on the environment. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. And if companies take it upon themselves to try to make that environmental improvement without the
if it just
regulations.
goes to the stock price. Or,
Yeah.
you know.
David Schechter, thank you
Appreciate
so
it.
much.